whatever it was, Charles went to the upper room and resolved it. Again, I'm not exactly sure how the technology works, but the fact that they come in here every week and create the ability to stream live is really, it's like a magic trick they do every week, and they've been doing it nearly into 6 years now. It's amazing. So, thank you for being here on this beautiful day. It's chilly, but it's beautiful and nice and clear. And I hope everybody's had a great week. I have. Went up to Blue Ridge this week and spied out the land. It's going to be really good. A lot of favor up there. A lot of green lights everywhere I went. It's so. I've said this before, but you go somewhere and tell them you're doing like a Bible study, you automatically, or like a Christian conference, and you're either going to get an argument or something. You say meditation weekend, it's amazing the doors that open for you. Like, nobody is anti-meditation. And, the Lake Blue Ridge is nice. It's the water's kind of low right now, so there's not a lot of beach area. But I found a really cool place at the marina where we'll actually be up on the parking lot, but it's it's right overlooking the water, and it's really nice. And I went there and asked them, I said, I'm doing a meditation group. Would there be any reason why I couldn't go to the end of this parking lot and just do it for sundown? She says, as long as you'll send us good vibes in your meditation. I'm like, done. So that was cool. And there's a...
Through motivation, enlightenment, transcendence, renewal, outreach, and networking. We're excited to have you here today and hope you enjoy the service.
Good morning, Metronites. Give yourselves a big hand for being here. Welcome, YouTube people. Thank you for your patience for us getting a little bit of a late start this morning. It's going to be a great day. Greet the person you're next to. I think everybody knows everybody, but in case you don't, make sure you introduce. And if there's somebody you've just never learned their name, just don't be embarrassed. Just say, I'm sorry, I just don't know your name. And then you may be seated. Glad you are all here this morning. And Ken's on call, and so he's out there. I went out and saw him, spent the night out there Friday night. And we went to Waffle House there in Eatonton, and Robert said that they had just been there like 20 minutes earlier. We had just missed them. So it was interesting. Funny. You're so... Y'all are all up in my business. And that conversation has already taken place about 8 times already. Thank you, Sanhedrin Court, for your legalistic inspection of what I eat. Where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is liberty. I want to say happy birthday to Avery. It's her birthday today. And I'll say something about that in just a moment. Oh, look, cute. Well, you know what? Since I've already said it, why don't you come up, Avery? And I don't even know how many years it's been now, but when I met Ernie and Avery, Colonel Rogers and Avery, when they needed a pastor, they needed a friend. It was a hard time for them. Good morning, happy birthday. And personally called to me, and even when I didn't know them all that well, I was still traveling a lot then and had churches at different places, and I'd go speak at one of the churches, and I go, "There's that couple. What do they do? Like, what are they doing here?" And so then I got to where I knew their names, and I said, "What?" I said, "I'm glad y'all are here, but why did? I'm talking like distances. Like, they drive great distances to be there. I don't know. We just felt like we should come and be here to support you and see if you need anybody to run your book table. Like, as a matter of fact, I do." And that sort of evolved into international travel, which they always went at their own expense, and just wanted to be there and support me. And then when I started this, it was for them it was a no-brainer. And they're not local. Ernie and Avery live in Madison. Every time I drive, as recently as Friday night, every time I drive, because that's close to where Ken's from, every time I drive out there, I'm like, good Lord, this is a hell of a long way they drive. And but they've never, yeah, that's right. They've never complained about. Anyway, first of all, on behalf of Metron, here are some roses, and here's a couple of cards, and there may or may not be a gift certificate in there to do a little shopping. And now let's look right here. We'll get a picture and see how cute we are. Let's look at Keith first. And look at Eddie. Now look at BJ. And we'll choose which one makes us look the cutest and the skinniest. All right. What? That's right. You want to say anything? No?
No, I didn't prepare. How old are you, Avery? 39. I guess is it on? I guess I do want people who aren't here to know that I'm 70 years old.
I wasn't going to say that. I didn't even say milestone.
And I attribute it to this teaching. And anybody who knows me from before I started hearing this teaching would agree that it is this. And which reminds me of a story and I don't remember, I'd maybe been coming here 5 years, ran into someone who was at a previous facility that we attended, church, and the woman came up to me and said, "Hi," like this, and then she said, "How are you doing?" And she was up in my face looking for facelift lines. Yeah. So keep listening, and you'll start reversing in years.
Awesome. Thank you. Love you. Thank you, Avery. Thank you, Avery. That means a lot. I appreciate it. I wasn't going to say the age. I knew it was a milestone, but maybe it's just because I'm closer to it myself now. But 70 isn't what it used to be. I mean, I was watching for whatever you think about Jane Fonda. I was watching the new season of Grace and Franklin this night. She's 81 or 80, 81, and it was a funny episode because it's all about things about aging. It's like her ex-husband who came out. He's having to get used to a CPAP machine, and Lily Tomlin's hand was shaking, so she wanted to go check to see if she had Parkinson's, and she wouldn't go, so they hired a doctor, or her boyfriend got a doctor to come over to give her an exam, and she thought he was hitting on her, so he kept saying, "Give me your hands," and like, "Squeeze my hand." It was funny because I've actually seen that very that exam, and he did it exactly the way the doctors do it, but he did it like romantically. It was funny. But 70 is the new, 50? Yeah. So, but really, it's not. It's it used to be like I remember the man my dad came to when we left the Church of God and came to Assemblies of God. He became an associate pastor for a man who seemed ancient, just ancient, and he's like my age. Like I'm like, what? Brother Bird he was 62. I mean, he seemed like an old man. I don't seem like an old man. That's somebody flirting with me on the elevator this morning on the way down. Several people asked me if those roses were for them, and I'm like, sure. I said, passing them out. Somebody told me, they said, I'm following you, but it looks like I'm not being very discreet because I'm like, okay, well, good morning. Hope it was worth it. So that happened. So had to get a restraining order from him, but what are you going to do? Agreed. Agreed. He restores the years, and there's a lot of scriptures about that, about your youth being renewed like the eagles, and I really do believe. I mean, we all have our magic tricks that we do to push back the clock, but at its deepest level, it really is it's your attitude. It really is. Somebody, I posted a picture on Facebook on Instagram, and somebody that used to go to the church said, What do you do? What are you doing for your skin? And I said, soap and water and happiness. I mean, maybe a little bit of a filter, but that's just good photography. Anywho, so next Sunday we will not be here. We will be in Blue Ridge. I think most of you have already got your place. Everything up there is of any place we've stayed. Seems like that's the lowest prices. I think it's because it's their off season, so cost shouldn't be a factor. We'll expect good weather. I mean, I can't deny that it's January, so bring a coat, but it's going to be good. I've always liked Blue Ridge. There's just certain cities that have a good vibe on them, and that one definitely does, and so you'll enjoy it, and we'll have a good time, and we need it. It's a good time to get away, and as always, just follow us on the thread. It's real easy. Like somebody that I've never met before emailed me this week or wrote me on Facebook and said, I'd like information about your meditation weekend. And I said, that's fine. I said, I can just put you on, with no obligation, I can put you on the thread and you get all the information. They said, I don't want to be on the thread, just privately email me. And I thought, I don't think this is for you, because it's like, nobody's going to be in your business. It's like, I haven't even answered them back because I thought, no, you don't. I don't think you get what this is. Believe me, everybody just wants to chill out. They're not wanting to. They're not. Nobody's gonna be like, I gotta. Charles, you got to edit that out of the podcast. Francis said, "Don't worry, we're not coming to your room." And Eddie said, "Well, it depends on what they look like." Well, hey, what happens in Blue Ridge stays in Blue Ridge. Oh, Lord. But, from the get-go, y'all have understood how I like to do this. And one of the, I guess it was the first one that Doc Sheila went to. She said something. I knew exactly what she meant. Because when you're a minister or a doctor or whatever, a lot of times people use the downtime. If like, let me ask you, I have a little pain over here or whatever, which is, it is what it is. You're used to it, but sometimes you just want to, chill out yourself. And she said it was interesting because everybody, I talked to everybody talked to me, but there was no work involved. I said, I know exactly what you mean. It's not, of all the times we've been there, nobody has, and if you've got a problem, I'm not telling you you can't talk to me about it, but like, everybody understood the spirit of this thing. It's like and I'm accessible to all of you. It's Freddie. Roz's up with her daughter today. She texted. I don't know if she saw her text, but everybody was texting me for agreement yesterday morning. We were at Waffle House. I had 7 conversations going on. If I just answer you with an emoji, don't take it personally. It's just there's a lot of people talk to me at one time. So she sent me a list of things, and so agree. And so I did a thumbs up. And so when I got back, I checked in a minute. She said, "Where's my agreed word?" I said, "Yes, ma'am. Sorry, agreed." I said, "I'm talking to a bunch of people at once. A lot of people want an agreement this morning." But I was like, "I got it." So please let the Mrs. know I am in agreement for the list of things that she submitted to me to agree for. But it's I never dread these things. I always look forward to them because everybody's just chilled out and gets it, and as far as like somebody had asked who doesn't come here, has they're on the thread and they'd ask, well, or do people get together for meals or whatever? That's if you want to, that's fine. But it's like I don't. I love that there's not a schedule other than the sunrise and the sunset. But like if there's a chemistry with somebody, you want to hang out with them, fine. If you want to, sometimes you just want to be by yourself. If you want to go, if you want to get a room and stay by yourself and make the whole thing about being contemplative and meditative, then do that. Nobody's. This is a judgment-free zone, and if you want to, I love that we're all mature enough that if you want to hang out with somebody, say let's go get something to eat. You can say it. You can okay, and if you don't feel like it, you can go. I think I'm just going to go in my room, and nobody like we're all big boys and girls. Like nobody gets their feelings hurt. It's like well, everybody's. This is their time to get away for a little bit. So I want you all to come up there, but if you don't come here unless you want to see a movie. There's several good ones showing here. 1917 is really good. So our outreach this month is Operation USA, and that money's already been sent. So very well-vetted charity organization that very similar to Red Cross, except the Red Cross is global. This is more domestic, and so that's cool. And I think for a year of living your best life, some of it that looked good, Colonel. What you did there, with your grilled vegetables. I love grilled vegetables, and that soup looked good. It was a good day for soup, and what do you mean you tried? Yeah. It's year of YL. Yeah. Yeah, I always just do the last the last two digits. It's all good. It's all good. We'll find it. Um, what? Uh, as I always say, hashtags are like phone numbers. You have to get the exact digits or whatever you call them. Let me see. Is that everything that I needed to? Huh? Wait, go back. Put. Oh, it was couscous. Yeah. Yeah, it was smoked collard greens and rosemary, sweet potatoes, and lemon broccoli with cashew parmesan and cranberry couscous. Very good. There's a lot of grains like quinoa, a lot of them that are high protein grains. They're all really good. So yeah, that's I go to. Who said that? If you want to eat the whole pot, eat the whole pot. Oh, really? That's too bad. All right. Have y'all got all your words out now? All you chatty Cathys this morning. All right. Um, I think we're ready to get started. We'll do meditation today. And by the way, these meditations this month have been really good, really, really good. Somebody, not here today, but somebody asked. They said, "Have you ever just considered doing meditation every?" Like, I love the music, but the meditation is so. And I said, "It's possible." I kind of like mixing it up, but I'm glad that people like it that much and get it and understand it. And it's just like anything else. You can do it on your own, but there is something about setting aside the intention, and even to do it in a group. It's kind of a bonding experience that's it's difficult to articulate what it does. But when you meditate with somebody, it's very intimate. It's like you really, like I feel, especially in some of the like sunsets that we've experienced together. You know, there's a reason why lovers go watch a sunset together, because there's something about the shared experience of that is very, it's romantic, it's loving, it's you know, you want to experience the beauty together, and I've, you know, I've felt that bonding with y'all on a certain level. You know, that we've experienced those sunrises together, and I still don't know how Inez taught school all those years and never saw a sunrise. That's amazing. But she said she had never actually watched the sunrise before, and what's that? Yeah, well, that's true. So, but and there's no, I mean, I don't know what I was trying to, where we're going to do sunset next week. I was trying to determine which way the sun. I think it's clear enough. We'll at least get a good sunset in. I don't know about the sunrise, but you know, that is the advantage of being on the beach, because you just see them so clearly. And we'll definitely, I'm sure, I haven't worked out the schedule yet, but I'm sure we'll, you know, we'll make it to one or both of the islands sometime this year. So keep that in mind as well. Y'all are like, just tell me when. Where are we going? Where are we going now? I'm there. I love it. I think some of y'all now are in a race of who can get the room fastest, because it's like the Oscar nominations. Like, where are we gonna go? Where are we gonna go? Where are we gonna go? Blue Ridge. Got my room. Like, wow, how is that even possible? How did you get a room that quick? Quickly. Yeah, Patricia, I think she's leading. She's like, what was it you said? It was years ago. I've known Patricia's been coming. She's been part of my ministry for I don't know how many years, a long time. And you said something when I was in Conyers. I said something about the world's bigger than Conyers, and you need to get out. What was? And she said she really felt like that was a word to her. And I do believe there is something that travel does for you that nothing else does. It's educational. It just changes your perception. That's why I say I've never met a well-traveled bigot. When you meet people that have traveled around the world, they just automatically are not racist or bigoted or what, because they just, you totally see that. At first you start saying, well, everybody's different, and then as that arc goes on, you know, wow, everybody's way more alike than they are different. And you start seeing the similarities with people. And so anyway, y'all definitely got that. And you never know where we may end up in the future. You don't know. You don't know. All things are possible. What? I don't know. I love me some Las Vegas. I could meditate in that desert. Heck yeah. And I'm not even a gambler, but everybody should go to Las Vegas once. It's there's nothing else like it. One thing for sure, if you wanted to see a lot of the world but didn't have time, you could go to a lot of places in microcosm. Like they've got little Paris, little New York, little Venice. Like it's kind of like, yeah, it is kind of like, and it's not just Sin City. I mean, Vegas is very family friendly too. There's a lot of it. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I've had some cool things happen in Vegas. You know, I told you about years ago that when I took my parents out there, I said, is there any place you wanted to go? And Mom said, I've always wanted to go to Las Vegas. I said, all right, let's make it happen. And we had some amazing things on that trip. On that trip, I was talking to her the other night because they did a follow-up on Siegfried and Roy all these years later after the accident with the tiger. And we went to that show, and we were sitting down in what would have been the orchestra pit. I mean, those tigers were as close as Karen is to me. I mean, you could smell them. And you know, when you look at it now, you're like, wow, that was a little interesting. And he made an elephant disappear like on the stage, and you're right there at it. You're like, there's no trap door. How did he just make that happen? That was amazing. And the coolest thing that happened, can I tell you my Wayne Newton story if you've never heard it? Have I told it too many times? Wayne Newton was there. I said, he's like the last of a dying breed. I mean, that's old school Vegas. So he was there, and we got tickets, and it's one of those big rooms where they have those oval shaped booths that seat 4 people. Like there's 2 and 2, or maybe it's 4 and 4. I don't know. Anyway, it's 2. It's like 2 tables in an oval, and that's when Debbie and I were together, and it was mom and dad, and it was 4 of us. So I go to my where my tickets are, and this woman is sitting right in the middle of the booth. And I said, "Excuse me." I said, "Can you move over these are our seats?" And she said, "I'm not moving. I've got a bad back, and it's more comfortable right here." And I said, "I know, but this is my seat." She goes, "I'm not moving. If I move, I can't see the stage as well." And I said, "Oh, I don't know what to do." So the usher came by and said, "Sir, you need to take your seat." I said, "I'd be happy to take my seat, but this woman is sitting in it, and she will not move." So he says, "Ma'am, you have to move over. These are their seats." I'm not moving. Like, the show's about to start, and they got a thing going on. I'm like, tell me what to do. I mean, I'm not going to sit on her lap. She's not going to move. And then, 5 minutes, 2 minutes later, this guy comes out with a flashlight, and he said, "Are you the ones that somebody sitting in your seat?" I said, "Yes, this lady will not move." And he said, "I'm going to shine a light on you and show her what good seats you're about to get." And we were like way, way, way back in the back. He put a light on us and took us literally to we were so under the stage, I was looking up Wayne's nostrils. And the whole time, it was interesting that he said, "I'm going to shine a light on you and show her what you're about to get." It was such a life lesson for me when you get a no, something better is about to happen. And the whole way down, I was like, enjoy your seats way back, way in the back. I thought you all knew that story. You did? See, I know you have, Colonel. You hadn't heard it. I love when little parables happen, like little things happen. You're like, "Oh, this was a teachable moment. This is really cool." Because I didn't know what we're gonna do. Like, I can't get in a fight with this woman, and she's just not. I mean, she's not gonna move. So, if somebody doesn't move, wait for the light to come shine on you, and you'll get something even better. I'm telling you, if you get your thinking right, there's no bad scenario. Everything, if it's not a blessing yet, it's just not finished yet. Like, just give it a minute, and it will turn into a blessing. So, thanks for coming. Drive safely. I'll see you in Blue Ridge. All right. I'm going to teach a little bit, then we'll do the meditation. Are we ready for the People of the Planet podcast? Welcome to the Metron Live podcast, coming to you from beautiful, historic Midtown Atlanta. Metron people, give the podcast people a big hand. We welcome you. I should work on my podcast voice. Like I got to find my FM voice. NPR. Hello, podcast people. I don't know. That sounds a little sleazy. This I guess it's a series that that's cool. I like that. The title is "Open the Eyes of My Heart: Meditation and 2020 Vision for 2020." When I started this a couple of weeks ago, I used the scripture. It's Paul's letter to the church at Ephesus, and if you look at Paul's chronology, you can kind of see like things that he said to the Romans, he ended up not saying to the Ephesians. And so you could tell little by little he was working out, he was deprogramming himself of Moses and Gamaliel and embracing the light more that spoke to him on the road to Damascus. And Ephesians, in my opinion, was his most enlightened epistle. There's no legalism in it. Ephesians is it's just very different. It's very, he writes some beautiful things, and he uses, it opens with a prayer, and he says, I pray that, he talks about your heart having eyes. And he says, I pray that the eyes of your heart are enlightened. And I use that verse, but I want to show you, I love different translations. I love that um, a translation is always a little bit of a paraphrase. I told you this before. I'll tell you again, when I was writing Gospels in the Now, I talked to a man who was a professional translator of the Bible. I mean, he actually would go into such remote areas where they didn't even have a written alphabet, and he would translate the Bible for them. So this guy was a true linguist. And I asked him, I said, I don't know how much liberty to take with how I see a word when I'm translating this. I understand the difference between a translation and a paraphrase. Like if you look at the Amplified Bible, you'll see there's a lot of parentheses and there's a lot of brackets. The parentheses is a translation. The brackets are a paraphrase. And even in the beloved King James version, the men who were on that panel in 1603 that decided what was going to go in that translation, which finally came out in 1611. If you've got an old school King James Bible, even the words that are in italics means that it was their commentaries. Like, this isn't really in the original, but this is what we think this means. And so I said, how much liberty can I take? Because it's a very serious thing to be translating the scriptures. And he said, well, technically, I mean, this was one of those sentences that somebody says to you that changes your life, especially because he was a professional. He said, technically, every translation is a paraphrase, because a word doesn't have an exact. Sometimes there's not an exact equivalent to it in another language. Like I remember, I was preaching a several thousand member church in Panama years ago, and I had a really good interpreter. He was one of those guys that would get in the zone with you. I'm sure you've worked with him like that, Doc. That you literally become one mind. Like they're saying something while you're saying the next. Like you're saying the next sentence while they're translating the previous one. But we were in a zone, and it was a great audience, and it was just a good flow. But then I said something about this guy thought he was really cool. And the interpreter looked at me and he said, "What do you mean?" I said, like we're on the stage in front of 5,000 people. He said, "What do you mean he thought he was cool?" And I said, like I'm trying to act it out. I said, like, he thought he was cool. And he didn't understand what I meant. He said, like he was cold? I said, no, like, I said, isn't there a word? Like he couldn't find a word in Spanish. He finally came up with one, chevere, that was like, I think that's what you mean. But I realized that, well, even for English-speaking people, there's things that mean something in the South that don't mean that in the North. What's the guy, the real heavy-set comedian, Bruce, is that his name? He was talking about he was diagnosed with diabetes. And he said, I went and told my mom. He said, Mom, I've been diagnosed with diabetes. And she said, okay. And he said, I was surprised, like she wasn't more upset. And he said, then I realized she's never called it that. In her generation, they called it the shug. So he said, Mama, I got the shug. And she was like, my baby's got the shug. She's like, Jesus. And he said, I said the exact same thing to her, but I had to find a word that she related to. And I thought that's the essence of translation, which is why I love so many different translations. Anybody who says, and I say this with boldness, anybody who says the King James Version is the official translation, that is a false doctrine. I would go so far as to say it's a doctrine of devils, because unless you lived in Great Britain in the 17th century, it is not the authorized version for you. It's a great one. It's the one everybody knows the most. That's why when I use another translation, I will give you a point of reference to say, this is where it says in the King James, because I know, all those years that I memorized stuff, it was all out of the King James. So I'm not anti-King James, but to make a bibliolatry it's not just a sin, it is a deceptive, demonic, antichrist, damnable heresy. Because I'm serious, because like I met a guy one time who believed that suffering was the will of God. And I said, what do you mean that? He said, well, the Bible even says that children should suffer. I said, what? He said, suffer the little children to come unto me. I said, do you not I said, sir, in Elizabethan English, suffer just meant allow. It means suffering in the context. He wasn't saying that children should suffer. And that guy, he actually said to me, if the King James was good enough for Jesus and the disciples, it's good enough for me. And I said, I mean, I couldn't believe it. And this guy had a large church. I wanted to go to his church and go, your pastor is an imbecile. I mean, he's an imbecile. I just gave him truth. And he even said, where did you get all this stuff about original languages? I said, are you serious? I said, do you think Jesus was British? So I love, if there's a phrase in a scripture that I love, and somebody says, what's your favorite translation? I don't think I have a favorite. There's some I use more than others, but I love those websites like Bible Gateway or Bible Hub, because there's a drop-down list and you can see all the different, and I'll show you what I mean, because just the concept of your heart having eyes is a beautiful concept. I love that idea. When you see the Hindus, when they paint a little red dot right there, it's symbolic of what they call the third eye. So it means your intuition. Or I'm telling you, whether you call it walking in the Spirit or whatever, you have to learn how to start using your intuition. Because your eye, these things, these optical organs, do not always show you the truth. You need to see things with your heart. So I want to show you the line. I think the first one I have up here is out of the Amplified Classic. The reason it's Amplified Classic is a few years later they modified the Amplified and tweaked it a little bit. I like the original. The Classic one is my favorite version. I love the Amplified. But here he says, by having the eyes of your heart flooded with light. I love that phrase. Then the second one is out of the Living Bible, which they also revised that a few years later. But he says, I pray that your hearts will be flooded with light so that you can see something of the future he has called you to share. I love that, because I'm going to talk about forthtelling in just a moment. But let me get to the rest of these. This is out of the Phillips translation. I think this one came out like in the 40s. J.B. Phillips, who's great, beautiful. It's just the New Testament. But he says that you may receive that inner illumination of the Spirit. That's a great phrase, inner illumination. And that's not some strange Eastern philosophy. Jesus and Paul both talked about in what we call the New Testament, the inner light. If you say, well, inner light's some New Age philosophy, you're really showing your ignorance of the Scriptures. I mean, I don't know why I'm painting in such bold colors today, but I'm just bored with people who don't know what the heck they're talking about. I mean, I don't know everything, but I've been preaching for 48 years. I mean, I know my way around the Bible, and when people are just intentionally stupid, and you present, like, let me show you what this originally says. Exactly. Well, and there's a lot going on right now. Even Ken's daughter-in-law, which surprisingly, because we're not even Facebook friends, she messaged me the other day because she had found this thing that the word homosexual wasn't even in the Bible until the 30s. And she said, "Is this true?" And I said, "Yeah," because I don't think I said it specifically that way in my last book, but when those verses of Scripture that people think are talking about gay people, they were talking about boy prostitutes. They were not. It had no. Sodom and Gomorrah has no more bearing on my life than it does on your life. It's like I don't want to live there. That's completely irrelevant. And when you see like some of you that came to my school, the Bible 5, I taught the biblical roots of racism, misogyny, and homophobia, and it actually did a number on me. The Old more with misogyny than anything else. The misogyny in the scriptures, when you start looking how anti-woman the Bible was, it's, even as a man, it's depressing. I can't imagine what it puts. I mean, just unbelievable. The stuff, like, if your daughter's raped, you can sell her to the rapist for half price. And even, I walked Christina down the aisle when she got married. I understand that whole thing, but even the whole concept of giving your daughter away, like, find another way to say that. If you wanna escort your daughter, but to say I'm giving her away, who gives this woman, like, this is that she's not property. Like, I don't, my children, my daughter's not an object that I'm giving to somebody. That's crazy. And when you say that to some people, they want to fight you on it. Like, I understand why Paul talked about people who are ever learning and never coming to the knowledge of the truth. I love when somebody says, you don't sound like you sounded 20 years ago. Thank you. Thank God, because you still do. If anything, you've gone retro. Like, you don't know, you know the Bible, but you don't know Jesus. You sure don't know the Holy Spirit. It's like, on the road to Emmaus, I love that story when Jesus is walking with those disciples. It's a longer distance than the Peachtree Road Race. It's 7 miles. And they're discussing the scriptures. They don't recognize Jesus. What are y'all upset about? Well, Isaiah the prophet. They're talking about the scriptures with Jesus and don't recognize Jesus. That's why when some church puts, on their marquee, we're a Bible-believing church, I'm like, oh, how sad for you. Sad for you. I believe in the Bible, but I believe, Jesus said when the Holy Spirit comes, he'll lead you into all truth. Not when, a few centuries from now, when these books are written and some guys go to North Africa at the Council of Nicaea and decide which, if you're Protestant, which 66 books are going to go into the canon. And it still does. The letter still kills. In the International Standard Version, it says the written text still kills. And I'll find now, occasionally, somebody will ask me something, and they'll send a message, and I'll write them back, and they'll say, well, I know, but I want to know what the Bible says about that. Well, the Bible doesn't say something about everything. When people say, there's an answer for everything in this book, I'm like, you must not have read it, because there's some things there's nothing, you're going to have to actually meet God. Exactly. In the beginning was the Word. Not in the beginning was the Bible. Absolutely. Y'all just know it all, don't you? This one is really cool, out of the Passion Translation. Doc, I thought of you. I thought of that Neville Goddard when I saw this. Because he says here, I pray that the light of God will illuminate the eyes of your imagination, flooding you with light. What? So I thought it was the eyes of your heart. It's how you interpret that word. That word can mean a lot of things. I mean, you think about some words you use the same word for lots of different meanings. That's why you have to understand context. But I love that. I pray that I like this Passion Translation. You had mentioned one time you'd like to get a copy of it, but it's online. I mean, it's like I don't. There was a time prior to the internet, like when I used to go to my office on Saturday nights. I already knew what I was going to preach on, but I would perfect everything, and I would have my desk would be filled with Bibles and dictionaries and thesauruses, Strong's Concordance, Vine's Bible Dictionary. I don't do any of that now. I can do all of that with my phone. That's when people say, they don't bring a Bible to your church. Well, which one would they bring? Like, because you don't know which one's he going to refer to. Exactly. And it's I mean, sometimes actually like the feeling of paper, and I don't think that will ever go away. But just the availability of one of the best ones, and it's not on a lot of the websites, is the Mirror translation, Francois Dutoit. It's amazing. But I love this one. This Passion Translation's good. That illuminate the eyes of your imagination. And then the Jonathan Mitchell, I use this a lot. It's very wordy, but this one's really good. He says, the eyes of your heart, the insights and perceptions of the core of your being, having continued being enlightened or being progressively illuminated into a state of enlightenment. I love the word progression. I'm not mad at the charismatics, but one mistake we made in the charismatic world was instant gratification. Like, come up to this prayer line, I'm going to pray for you, and everything will happen. Things rarely happen that way. You know, when Jesus prayed for the 10 lepers, it says they were healed as they went. They didn't just stand there and wait for manifestation. If you're in the process of recovery, it's possible to be both a masterpiece and a work in progress at the same time. And progression is illumination is progression. Progression is illumination. Even now, and somebody this week, I think he lives in Virginia, got my last book. I guess he got it off Amazon, and he said this is the most practical book I've ever read. Well, if I were writing it now, I would already write it differently. It doesn't mean I'm going to take it off the market. I'm just saying that's the way I spoke a few years ago. I don't speak that way now. I don't know what I'll sound like 5 years from now, but I'll sound better. I think what's happening now is, and I think it's happening to a lot of you, you're actually becoming the message. You know what I mean? It's like you just say it. I mean, there's Eddie, some of the stuff you've posted recently on Facebook, it's like scripture. And it's like, well, it's the gospel according to Eddie. And it's in your vernacular. It sounds like you write like you talk. And but there's light in that. And it's I'm telling you, I was taught in Bible school, if the text says something different from your heart, always go with the text. Now I think just the opposite. If the text doesn't agree with my heart, I'm like, text ain't right. I trust my heart. That's when you know you've grown up spiritually, when you start trusting your own heart. And you don't even have to argue with people about the Bible anymore. You're like, look, if that's your revelation, namaste. You know, but namaste right here where I am. I can't resist.
I'm thinking about wicked words. Go on with all your bubbles and stuff.
Yeah. Exactly. If that's where you are, that's fine. I don't mean that in a condescending way. It's just like, I don't even think that way now. And if you do, that's fine. But I'm telling you, I look back, and this is just the truth. I look back over my ministry. I haven't met many happy Christians. I haven't. I met Christians who were, thinking the world was going to end, and they're fighting the devil, and they live in that constantly. And now the type of people I meet they're just happier. Well, you're exactly right. Definitely with the Pentecostals, happiness was frowned upon. Like, you're not supposed to feel at home in this world. You're not supposed to like this world. You're supposed to be wanting the next one. And I remember when I was a young man, I started reading some of E.W. Kenyon's books, and I remember it changing my brain chemistry because, I remember reading his The Father and His Family, and he was talking about how God created the world in the way that a parent puts together the nursery for a baby they're expecting, and he talked about how God wanted there to be color in the world and I remember thinking, wow, you really like it here, because there's people now that teach that even talking about ecology or taking care of the planet is some liberal New Age theology, and like, really? But I was taught the world was going to be renovated by fire. So I thought, well, why are we worried about, polluting? Because, God's going to burn it down, soon. And then when you start realizing, oh, we're supposed to love it here. And then when you start having the nerve to say, well, maybe this is heaven. And I'm telling you, that's a whole other thing. When you can say, oh, well, yeah, streets of gold, that's okay, cool, but man, that sunset on the beach was pretty heavenly. I don't like, I kind of loved it. And it's when you start realizing, oh, it's okay to be happy, it's okay to love your life, it's okay to not read spiritual warfare into everything and not be paranoid all the time. And anyway, so I wanted to share these with you. I really love them. And I do want to say something about the idea of the eyes of your heart, because one of the translations said, see the future of your calling. I'm in a kind of an evolution period with the idea of forthtelling. I was raised with the gifts of the Spirit, and part of the gift of prophecy, especially the word of knowledge, word of wisdom, was to tell future events. And some of them have been accurate. Some of them, I understand why Paul said prophecy has to be judged. I understand why Paul said we know in part, we prophesy in part. Just because somebody prophesies something doesn't mean it's the truth, and it doesn't mean it's an absolute. Even if it's the truth, they are still prophesying to your potential. And I watched over the years, I was pretty thorough about screening people that I would have come in that would forthtell. Back in the day, the singer Katy Perry, her parents, I used to have them in a lot, and we were friends, and they would do that, and it was fine. But I would also notice that sometimes they would give somebody a word, and the word would make the person lazy. It was like, you're going to meet this, this thing's going to happen. And they would be like, well, it's going to happen. It's going to happen. I'm thinking, well, you still have to, prophecy is still conditional. You still have to meet certain criteria for things to, manifest. And then I've had some people, I had one of the most respected prophets ever, and it's not one that you're thinking. This is somebody, I would say his name, you would know him. He's famous. He had a school for prophets. And he prophesied over me one time that I was going to have a home for fallen ministers, and I'm like, that's not even on my wish list. Like, dear Lord, I don't want to. I'm not your sex scandal guy to help you through. Y'all. I can't put you all together in a house. Good Lord. That's. And I remember, he had his hand on me, and I was like, everybody's like, he's the greatest one. I'm like, not so much. And you know how many times I've told you the story when I first met Rutherford, and he told me, he's been very accurate about, my children, and so I'm not anti, what do you call it, readings or prophetic or whatever. I think where I'm at now is I believe so much that we're creating reality as we go that it's like I don't need it anymore. You know what I mean? Like I've ended up being my most trusted prophet. Like I prophesy my future. Exactly. And when Paul wrote to the Corinthians about the gifts of the Spirit, he talked about the implosion of the spiritual gifts. He says, whether there be knowledge, it'll vanish. Whether there be prophecies, they'll fail. Tongues will cease. They were not meant to be doctrinalized and kept indefinitely. You were supposed to weed off of them at some point. But I have had some amazing things. I was thinking about this week, back when we first built the first building in Conyers. The church doubled in size that year. That was in 1997, and we went from like 750 to 1,200 in 1 year. We had to go to 2 and even 3 services sometimes. And so during that time, I started I started getting the attention of a lot of people that I wouldn't have met otherwise. One of them was Dr. Mark Sharona, and we're not in each other's lives now. It's some of the turns I've taken, he wasn't able to take with me, but I remember things like in '99, he called me one day and he said, I don't know what this means, but in the next 11 to 18 days, he specifically said 11 to 18 days, your church is going to be given a worldwide platform. People all over the world are going to see your church. So I'm thinking, well, what's going to happen? So 11 days later was when the shooting at Heritage High School was. And I don't think Felicia's here today. She's usually here on Sundays. Her daughter, Kanaya, was shot. She wasn't killed. She was shot in the leg. But because of that, because I was at the hospital with her a lot, I started getting on the news. And, then when she got out of the hospital, some of you might have been going to church back then. But what I did for her, I said, I get tired of these shooters getting all the attention here in their name. I said, I want to celebrate that you're alive. So I hired a limo and I had her brought to the church, and we got her roses. Well, when I drove up in the parking lot, and NBC, ABC, all their trucks were set up. So on the 18th day, he said 11 to 18 days. On the 18th day, I was getting emails from Israel, like people were seeing that all over the world. And the next day, that's when Clinton was president and Al Gore was vice president. So Al Gore came to meet with all the parents of the people who the kids had been shot. Nobody was killed that day, but several people were injured. And I'm sitting there listening to Al Gore, and he says, well, it's just like Bishop Swilley said yesterday in his sermon, we need to celebrate the kids. And I'm like, how the heck does Al Gore? Well, come to find out, he had watched my entire sermon on an NBC feed, and Mark was right, from the 11 to 18 days. Now, there were other things that happened later that brought me even more notoriety. But I remember that, that was really interesting. Specifically, I know other people who have prophesied things, and I'm like, I got to put that one on a back burner. I don't know about that one. But when somebody says the next 11 to 18 days, that does get your attention, because you think, well, like when Rutherford said you're going to have a son in August, I said, well, that would mean my wife's pregnant right now. He said, she is. I said, no, she isn't. He said, yes, she is. Sure enough, she was, and Jared was born August 8th. So I have definitely had experience with that sort of thing. And even now, like I told you about this guy, I don't even know him, but he was a trainer that used to train where Stephen trained. And he's moved to Miami, and I follow him on Instagram, and I just felt like giving him a word. I didn't even call it prophecy. I just said, even yesterday he had posted, he was out on the beach training a whole bunch of people. I mean, he clearly has hit his zone. Like, he's just been there a few days, and he's got all these clients. And I said, you clearly have found your flow. I mean, I'm interested to see how this thing's going to play out for you. And there's, I remember I told you he was supposed to be triplets, and his two brothers were stillborn. I said, you've absorbed the life force of your two brothers. And he's like, oh my God, dude, you're like rocking my world. And I don't even overthink those kind of things. Like my neighbor, yesterday I just texted. I just said, by the way, the Holy Spirit says, stop overthinking the things about your relationship and your job. And what I said, you need to relax, because things are trying to come to you, and he texted right back like, I immediately felt peace when you said that. So I don't need to call you up in front of a crowd and speak Elizabethan English over you. Prophecy now is so infused into the way. We're talking to that little girl, that young lady, in Blue Ridge this week at the tea place. I don't even know what I said, but she said, I just asked the universe this question, and you came in and answered it. Well, okay. So if you're always looking for a word outside of you, you will miss that. Some of the most profound things I hear now are they sound really simple, you know? Like when somebody says, you need to be still right now. If it's somebody who really speaks into my life, or don't stress over that or whatever, I'm like, no, I hear you. I understand what you're saying. Which brings me to this quote. I have two quotes I want to show you. I used this in a meditation earlier this week. It says, what you want is already here in the unified field of pure potential. Everything you need to fulfill your greatest desire is already part of your being. But it can't come out until you align with it, let go of the obstructions to it, and raise your vibration to the level at which it already exists. So I'm just telling you, for people like you, y'all are through the looking glass. Do you understand? Your days of flying somewhere hoping some guy in the crowd's going to call you out and prophesy, you don't need it now. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I'm saying it's not applicable to you now. You already, dare I say, know more than a lot of those guys know. I mean, to be prophesied over now would nearly be like a demotion. Like you don't need it. You needed it at one time. It is. It's putting away childish things. And it's fun. It's fun. I mean, I've been prophesied over, by the best of them. And it's totally. Well, the first year. Oh, yeah, totally. The first year that we had Kim Clement, it was the biggest crowds we've ever had. And because I am honest, the offerings we gave him that year were twice what I made. We paid him twice what I made in 1 year. But that's what came in. Like, he said, I've never seen offerings of this. That's what the people gave. Because people, it just hit the nerve. And it was great. I wouldn't take anything for that season. But man, I outgrew it fairly quickly. But yes, people who don't know how to get an answer for themselves, and they don't know that it's already in them. And they don't know. I at least knew back in the day that prophecy was supposed to confirm what I already knew. And if somebody says something that's so out of left field that you're like, I've never even thought about that. Like, why? That's not. I'm just going to have to ponder that one in my heart. Which, there's a place for prophecies like that. I don't think Mary, visualized a virgin birth. I think she was just engaged to Joseph. So I believe there's a place for a word just coming in and interrupting, your schedule. But those things are few and far between. And now what I have noticed in my own life, the less I look for that kind of thing, the more things just happen on a daily basis, where I'm just at the right place at the right time, where I can say, it's Thursday, but your kids are in town and they've got friends with them. Let's just go to the theater and see if they've got 6 seats available. I don't know if you've ever bought Broadway tickets on a Thursday in New York. You can't there's no such thing. People are on waiting lists for years. And I said, let's just go in. Is it possible to get 6 seats? And she goes, 6 seats just came available in the 8th row. Okay. And no, honestly, I didn't even do that. I was like, good, we'll take them. And then it turns out we needed 5. We go back the next day, 5 instead of 6. Big sign, absolutely no refunds. I said, yesterday we got 6 tickets, but it turns out one of the kids didn't come, so we really only need 5. And I was ready to eat it if they hadn't. I was like, well, live and learn. And not even a heartbeat. She goes, oh yeah, that's fine. Just like that, refund. I didn't need a prophecy for that. It's just being in the zone. That's just when now you are the prophecy. You are everywhere you go, you are the light. It starts making you go back and look at, why did Jesus say you are the light of the world? Let your light so shine before me. Why would he say that? Because this was the progression that was supposed to happen. I'm finding I need people to pray for me less and less. I'm not anti-prayer, but I mean, I'll save it for. I mean, I don't even tell some of the things that go on, with my dad these days. I mean, there's no point in even talking about it when people say, "How's it going?" I'm like, it is what it is. And there's good days, there's bad days. I don't even think about posting it now. Like, there's nothing to, like, yeah, I mean, pray for me, but it's fine. It's just a rite of passage. I'm deeply regret this has happened to him. I don't want to judge him too harshly because I don't want to send some bad mojo out and it happened to me. So I'm trying to be patient. Like, that's his journey. My journey is going to be different. I will live a long time in my right mind. And, he's a good man. I don't have the answers for why that happened. But I don't need to constantly ask people to pray. It just is what it is. And sometimes, sometimes you'll text me and say, "I hope you're having a really great day." That's all I need. I'm like, you know what? Yeah, you too. I usually do back at you. And like, well, that's not a prayer. Yeah, that's kind of where we are now. Like, yeah. I mean, something as simple, again, I mentioned this, but when I had vertigo the other day, and it got better, but then I woke up one morning, I thought, oh, crap, really? Because it felt like I had relapsed. And I picked up my phone, and my cousin had just written, "I'm glad you're feeling better." And when I read that, I thought, you know what? I'm going to go with that reality, yes. And I immediately started getting better. That doesn't sound like a prayer. Yeah, it kind of was. It was a lot of what people do. Like tomorrow, I'm sure I'll watch it. It's every year I watch the King celebration. And for those kind of ceremonies, lots of people are on the platform to pray, but they're not praying. They're preaching a sermon, whatever. It's not prayer. It's cool oratory, but it's not prayer. Prayer, I'm finding now most of my prayer is lateral. I don't need to take you before the throne of God. I can just say, you're going to be okay. You're going to get through it. And here's a thought. My word has power too. Yes, exactly. Because I have people that will say, I need to hear it in your voice. I mean, I understood what Roz meant when she said, "I need you to write that word, agreed." Like, I understand what you're saying. Because what she's saying is, if you'll say you agree with me, then it'll happen. Okay, fine. Yeah. And if people are not living in that world, they don't understand that. So there's no point in arguing with them about it. They're just not there yet. But you're right. It's a childish thing that you have to put away. Now, a prayer, honest to God, a prayer can be like that. I mean, I've had somebody just come on and put their arm around me, and I swear it was a prayer. It was, it was an impartation. It was really interesting. I haven't mentioned this yet, but we went to a few days ago. We went to see the latest Star Wars, and Star Wars is always very interesting. How the writers of those stories, and this one wasn't all written by George Lucas, but it's under his umbrella. But Star Wars seems to always have its finger on the pulse of spirituality. And in this one, there was a lot about the laying on of hands. I was surprised how much it figured into the story of like somebody, they would call it the transference of energy, but it was like somebody laying hands on somebody. And I thought, that's why, and I'm sure at some point I'll do it next weekend, but when we're in the meditation weekend, I nearly always will go around in the circle and just touch. I'm not even praying in the spirit or anything. It's just something that's unspeakable, but it's a transference. I'm telling you, we just keep bumping up into living the supernatural life a lot. Just a lot. Yes. Danny said, yeah, there's definitely a power in a circle. There's something about a circle. There's something about joining hands. There's something about just, yeah, exactly. Yes, you're right. Whew, next weekend's gonna be good. What? What? Okay, what?
So it's just funny. The topic is open the eyes of your heart, right? Then you talked about the eye.
Third eye.
Okay, so the heart chakra, the color is green. Yeah. So up here to me, I don't know if you can take the words down. This looks like an eye in the heart. Okay, and then off to the sides, to me, it looks just like on the heart monitor, like the heartbeat. Except it's a flowing heartbeat, and then the eye is in the heart. I mean, it's just incredible how she comes up with these graphics.
Shell, you hearing all that?
Does she know what she's doing? I mean, she's so.
No, Michelle's. It's a ministry. She's called to it. I mean, she's definitely. No, there's definitely Wow. No, but you're right.
Ever since I realized it, like this energy just came into me, and it's like flowing so powerful.
Phew.
And then you just, and I don't know what color the intuition is, but I just know the heart chakra is a green.
Wow.
That eye is in that heart. It's just so powerful.
Wow, wow, wow. Say what? Oh, yeah. Wow, 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 wow. Everybody give it up for Michelle.
You were just talking about when we're in that circle. If the prophets had had enough wisdom to have all those people in a line get in a circle, he would have done away. He wouldn't even had to have a line.
I agree. I think that's very interesting. She was saying, talking about, you mentioned about the power of a circle. If prophets, especially during the prophetic thing, had understood that instead of just going down a line prophesying, the energy is in the circle. Of course, for big crowds, sometimes that might not be possible. But no, you're right. There is something, even, I don't think y'all would poo-poo this kind of thing, but even when you look at ideas like feng shui and stuff, there's a reason why you create energy in a space. There's a reason why I like you all up close. It's not just because it makes the pictures look better. That is a part of it. I mean, I do want it to look better, but I like there's something happens when I'm in close proximity to you that I need. And I'm telling you, something really special happens when we come here. I know it's not always the easiest thing in the world to get here or whatever, and I that's why I don't yell at you if you can't. But there's something, for however long we're here, I will always remember this space, this holy ground, these amazing things that happened, these words that were said when we came together. And even when you speak up, we're close enough now, I can at least pick it up on the mic or repeat it, whatever. And it's amazing what we create here every week.
Instead of you being way up yonder on a pulpit somewhere. Much more.
Exactly. Well, and it's more like the way I think Jesus taught. Yeah. The whole point of a pulpit is not just to hold your papers, but it's to create a barrier. Like the clergy is different from the laity, and oh, agreed. Wow.
We are all called for some type of calling and pastoral roles, and your bishop, it's more than what the religion.
Agreed.
You're not trying to get nobody saved.
Well, Avery and I were talking about it the other day because sometimes when people will say things to you that, like when when Fanny Bryce meets Nick Ornstein, she goes, "What's your name?" He says, Nick Ornstein, and it's a freeze frame, and it goes, Nicky Ornstein, what a beautiful, beautiful name. There's sometimes somebody will say something to you, and it's like a freeze frame. And years ago, I've told y'all this a bazillion times. Here's bazillion and one. But there was a woman that used to come to the church. Her husband was a furniture dealer. Like a lot of that furniture that we bought for the cafe and all that a lot of that. He did a lot of that, and he was Jewish, and I mean old school Jewish, not like Messianic Jew. I mean he's like gefilte fish Jewish, and but he came to me one day for counseling about something he was going through, and so we were talking, and I said, don't misunderstand why I'm asking this, because I'm glad to talk to you, but why are you talking to me? And he said, well, you're the only person I know that I would have confidence enough to even be able to. He said, I couldn't talk to my rabbi about this. He said, you're the one that knows stuff. And I said, well, that's interesting. And I said, well, let me ask you this, because he used to come to church. I don't even remember his name now. But I said, he said, I'm not ever going to receive Jesus Christ as my personal Savior. He says, just so you know, I don't believe in that. I said, I'm not trying to get you to. It actually never crossed my mind. I said, but if you feel that strong about it, does it not bother you that I preach predominantly out of the New Testament? I mean, most of my references are to the Gospels. And he said, no, I don't, but it doesn't bother me. He said, first of all, I call you my rabbi, but he said, I also don't think you're a minister. I said, what do you mean? He said, you're the leader of the new people. And it's like when he said that, it's like his face just kind of blocked out. And when he said, it's nearly like he didn't realize what he said. You're the leader of the new people. And I was like, nobody had ever said that to me before. I'm like, okay. And it kind of froze for him. Leader of the new people. That's a prophecy. If I had said to him, you just prophesied to me, he'd be like, what are you talking about? Because he wasn't even technically spiritual. But that was just such an insightful thing to say that even didn't really apply to me at the time, which goes back to what I was saying about forthtelling and foretelling. Interesting. One other thing, William Blake, who says, as a man is, so he sees. As the eye is formed, such are its powers. I don't think there's anything more important than talking about vision. So I'm going to leave it right there. Let's just do about a 10-minute meditation. Because next weekend we'll be doing it for the entire weekend. Did you get anything out of this today? Only one person? Only Reggie? Sit up straight, please. Both feet on the floor. Clear your lap. Something about the beginning of this chord progression sounds like the Lord's Prayer. Oh, thank you. How'd you do that, Miracle Man? Close your eyes. Concentrate on your breathing. Breathe in through the nose. Hold it. Breathe out through the mouth. Inhale. Exhale. You can in whatever position feels the most like receptivity to you. There's such a palpable presence of God and creativity in this place. It's going to be very, very easy to just get right into this one. So just breathe into it. I don't even have to instruct you a lot today. Just do it, be it, see it. more moment and embrace your presence. When you're ready, you can open your eyes. We'll go and bring the lights back up. Let's all stand. What a beautiful presence today. What a beautiful atmosphere. What are you feeling? So what? Definitely energy today. Refreshed. I love it. No pain. Anybody else? What are you feeling? What? Peace. Definitely peace. Definitely calmness. I understand. Being sure of the zone. Yeah, the zone's a real thing. It's a real thing. And I've noticed recently, if I'm out of it, I can get back in it fairly easily. You know, it's like one day this week, some mornings I'll walk up to CNN Center and I'll sit there and watch the news. I'll work on my meditation. And the Starbucks I went to, it was just weird energy. Like they were all snippy and snappy and, like yelling at me and stuff. And I thought, what the heck? That never happens. Like, what do you, like, she was like, sir, she snapped at me. I said, I'm just standing here waiting on my coffee. I'm just standing here. And I thought, okay, change this right now. I need to change. I don't know what is going on, what weird mojo happened when I walked up here. But because if you don't arrest it right then, you'll start having a bad day. Like, oh, this is the beginning of my story. You can't believe what a horrible day this was. And immediately it changed. It was the day that I wrote about if you don't like the energy. It might have been Monday. It might have been Monday because right. And because I wrote, I said, if you don't like the way it's going today, change the energy. Because I was having to do it myself. Because at first I was like, what are y'all doing? Why are y'all doing this to me? And I thought, no, I'm not that guy. Like I create my reality. I think it was Monday. Yeah. Yes. 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 Go ahead and play this for the YouTube audience, and we'll let you go. And thanks for
Contributing to Metron is quick
helping us
and
tear
easy.
down today.
You can give anytime using any smartphone. Text the amount you'd like to donate to 404-620-5044. You will then receive a notification that you successfully completed your donation. You may also visit bishonthennow.com and click the support tab to give there as well. When you contribute to Metron, you're also donating to the charity or organization of the month. Thank you for your investment into Metron.
If you're making a check, make it to JESM. Danny will receive that. If you have cash, just pay it forward. You're going to have a beautiful week, whatever you need to take care of before you go out of town. Let me also say tomorrow is King Day, we honor the memory of Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and an amazing man. And so, in some way, his dream for the day was to be service, not just a day off. So, so be aware of that tomorrow and serve somebody. Well, good. So, so honor that tomorrow. We do honor the man who had a dream, and for the people he was initially speaking to, there's still a ways to go. But my God, look how much things have changed. So concentrate on what's positive as you keep moving toward something better. Everything's going to be beautiful in Blue Ridge. We speak a blessing over the entire thing, and I will see you there. Go in peace.